it's like people that edit writing. I don't know if you've ever sent something in to be like edited. Hey, will you take a look at this? They want to change. Like some people will be like, you need a comma here. There's a grammatical error there. Your tense is wrong right here. That's really useful. But other people want to like rewrite what you wrote. Like, when does it stop becoming my job and start becoming yours? As an SDR, being told how to do the job is like, why don't you give me some guidance? Don't tell me how to do it. I'm not you.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us today on the 5onCast, your sometimes weekly source for insights into whatever I happen to care about. I'm your eternal, ever-burning co-host, Patrick Downs. Some may call the modern Johnny Blaze, and today I am joined by James Buckley, the Director of Sales Execution and Evolution at J. Barrows. You know what I titled today's episode?
Tell me.
Do as I say, not as I podcast.
Nice. All right, that's pretty good. I like that.
Thank you.
That's quite hypocritical.
It is. And we're going to be talking about sales leader hypocrisies. Note, I am a sales leader and I actually am pretty hypocritical. So I think this is something I know a lot about.
Yes. Perfect. This will be a great uncomfortable conversation for us.
Yay. I'm always welcome to uncomfortable conversations. Before we get into the topic though, James, do you want to add any sort of like color to your introduction at all?
Yeah, lots of colors. So I say inappropriate things for a living, and it's really fun because people are often caught off guard with what comes out of my mouth. That's essentially your job as a salesperson, is to make an impression that cannot be forgotten. Whether it's good or bad is completely up to you. Some people have different goals. That's all I'm saying. My goal is to help as many salespeople as possible with their acumen when it comes to connecting with new business, having new conversations. And I do this by selling sales training. I sell sales training either in person or on our new platform, which is an on-demand Netflix-style sales training learning platform. Check it out at ondemand.jbarrows.com.
Awesome, man. Thank you for joining us. Before we get into the topic again, I got two pre-qualifiers, not just one, not just color. I have a section I just started doing. I'm going to ask you 3 really personal questions, and I want to get some answers on it just to set the vibe. Because this is a different kind of podcast, James. This is all about jamming.
Yes,
so
let's do it,
we're going to
man.
jam into your psyche real quick. First question. What is like your most deeply rooted personal fear?
Imposter syndrome is big for me. I often feel like I don't deserve any of this. I have done a lot of wrong in my life in the past, so I live with that haunting me, and I consistently feel like I have to do right to make up for it.
Wow. I think a lot of people feel that way. That's super common. Yeah. I don't know if I've met a single salesperson, especially, that does not have imposter syndrome. Think there might be a link?
Maybe. It's a hard thing, man. Fake it till you make it is definitely a point of conversation. John spoke about it for a long time today on the podcast with Jeff Hoffman. So,
what is one thing that you wish people knew about you?
I wish people knew about my history. It's a very common mistake to think that people have always been where they are. And I don't think that people ask enough, what does your history look like? And wow, how did you get into this? It's often like, great, this is what I do and here's where I'm at and this is what I can provide for you. But very rarely is it like, how did you get to this point in your life? And that story is often so interesting. So I wish people would ask me that more often.
Huh. When I have you back, we'll talk about that.
All right.
Sound good?
Yeah.
All right. One last thing. Okay. If you could change one thing about how people treated each other, what would that be?
I think that we should be more cautious with the words that we use. Oftentimes, I think we forget that sometimes tonality and inflection matter in what we're saying. So there's this element of tone that's lost in text, for example, and we don't realize that we're coming across the wrong way and could be deemed offensive in some way. This pandemic, 2020 pandemic, for example, if nothing else comes out of it, the one thing I've seen is that people are much more willing to speak with care and caution with how they approach. So it's a lot less business oriented and much more, hey, how are you? And while that might seem superfluous and kind of, people shouldn't ask, how are you? That's like a waste of time. If you're connected to somebody and trying to provide value to them, it makes sense that you would ask them how things have been going and make sure that they're in a good place mentally before you just start dumping features and functions on them. I feel like a lot of people don't focus on that part of it enough. You need to build some rapport. You need to have that care for your language that you use. Don't just dive right in and try to make a sale. That's probably not going to land you in a good spot.
The best sales call that I ever took as like the prospect, the person asked me like, what's one thing that really stood out about your day to day? Which is very specific. It's a way of asking like, how are you? But it gets a real answer because whenever you single something out, the person kind of has to answer.
I agree.
And it makes you think.
It does. And I think that's the purpose of a great SDR is to make somebody feel differently, think differently, say to themselves, I never looked at it that way. That provokes interest.
It's the opposite of saying any questions.
Yeah. Let me give you some questions to ask, right? Like
whenever somebody says any questions to me, it makes me so angry. And I never realized how anger inducing it is until that happened to me. And then I came from a different perspective, whether I'm speaking or I'm selling to somebody. And I still don't ask that anymore. Like I'll want to ask it as a tick and it will be on the tip of my tongue. I'll go, and then I have to stop myself and just say, sorry, there's something in my throat.
The one that gets me is, does that make sense?
I have to stop myself from doing it.
I'm not stupid. Of course it makes sense.
I hate when people say that to me too, and I have to actively force myself to stop. I'm about to say it, and it just...
I said it earlier today, and right after I said it, I was like, damn it.
I gotta get like a pin on my desk that I can just like stick into my leg whenever I'm about to say something stupid like that. Like, no, it does make sense, Patrick.
Yeah.
Come on. And speaking of hypocrisies, I'm the king of transitions.
Nice.
When you emailed me, I understood what you meant, but to set the stage, what do you think of when that phrase comes up?
Yeah, so the most obvious example for me that comes to mind is cold calls. Cold calls are a point of contention for every decision maker that is a sales leader because we have teams of people that cold call. But when people cold call us, we're so mean to them. Take me off your list. Remove me. This is a personal line. You need to stop contacting me. Then they hang up the phone and they walk over to their sales floor and they go, hey guys, we have to make more phone calls. We need more cold calls. Okay. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call somebody. What are you talking? You just shit all over that person that called you. Right. But the flip side of that coin is I also understand that if every sales leader everywhere took every call that was presented to them, no actual work would ever get done. It would just be call after call after call, demos and pitches. And nobody wants that either. So how do we muddle through that hypocrisy? How do we get sales leaders to stop shitting on the cold callers that call them while trying to build up their cold callers? That's so hypocritical. It's also hypocritical that most sales leaders don't actually make any cold calls, but have the nerve to walk into their sales rooms and say, how many cold calls did you make? John will tell the story about how he turned to his sales manager and said, dude, how many cold calls did you make today? It didn't work out for him. It definitely didn't land him in a good spot with his manager, but it's a great point.
I have the opposite problem where like if somebody cold calls me, I'm like, fuck, I have to take your demo, dude. Because I have that in me from when I used to do that I just wish somebody would give me a chance, that I give almost everybody a chance if the messaging isn't completely upsetting.
I understand exactly what you mean. I have learned that picking up cold calls and saying and I answer every phone call the same way. And if you've ever called me, I say, this is James. How can I help you? Let me tell you that right there is enough to throw any SDR off. Because they're used to
myself trying to answer to that. How can I help you?
Yeah, like, how can you help me? Oh, shit. Right? It's like it throws a bone, a spoke in their wheel. Like, I don't know how you get. Hang on a minute. No one's ever said that to me before. It's like something.
Give me another job.
Yeah. So it's crazy, right? But what I have learned is great technique and wonderful conversational prowess for openers, thanks to all the cold calls that I have taken that have gone well. Now, that's 1 in a million. I'll tell you that most calls are crap, but I like to coach those people anyway. And I say, how do you think this conversation is going so far? And usually the answer is, well, I don't feel like it's going very well.
Do you think the sales leaders are getting angry at the sales reps that are just calling poorly, or is it everybody? Even if it was like a 5-star cold call, would they still be angry? Or is there a difference?
If it doesn't yield a result, it doesn't matter. And I think that's important to note. Whatever that result might be, maybe the result is you've built a little more trust between you and that prospect. Maybe you didn't get a great call to action or define next steps, but that person really enjoyed the call and they could tell. That's progress. That's positive. You need that because now that person can call that individual anytime and they expect great conversation. Great. Not every single call equals my goal achieved. Some calls equal, this is a great opportunity for me to build a new bridge. But we never look at it that way. We look at it like, I got to hit this number because that's the whip that's being cracked by the manager behind us.
It's funny now that I'm thinking about it, it is like a demented cycle where they're saying, hey, make these calls, but they're not giving them the ability to call and just have a conversation. It's always you need to book a meeting. I've heard a lot of people throwing out that they're changing the way their SDRs act and they're more like a nurture function than I'm just trying to immediately get a meeting. And
I think if a meeting,
a sales leader is not going to encourage that unless it's a built-in process, but I'd like to hear your take.
Yeah. So I think they do give them the opportunity to have as many conversations as they want. What they're not realistic about is what those conversations will yield. So this is the way this works. And I see this time and time again. A sales leader will look at the calendar from last month at the beginning of the month, and they'll say to their team, what's the problem here? You guys aren't having enough conversations. Well, anybody that's been in sales for longer than a year knows that not every conversation equals an opportunity. So they have as many conversations as they can for that month. And then the sales leader will pull somebody in for a one-on-one and they'll go, I see you booked all these conversations. And the guy will go, yeah, it was a great month. And they'll go, yeah, there's only like 8 opportunities in here. We need to talk about where you spend your time. What? At the beginning of the month, 30 days ago, you were telling me I need more conversations. Look at all these conversations. But you want to talk about where I spend my time? Where the hell do you spend your time? That becomes a very uncomfortable conversation for both parties because it's completely contradictory to what was said to us at the beginning of the month. But you can't have more conversations and then expect every single one of those conversations to be opportunities. They're not. That is not realistic in any way, shape, or form.
I think it's interesting to think about that sales leader you're talking about as an expression of their boss. Because whenever I was at Yelp, my manager was actually fucking awesome and I loved him. But when he pissed me off, it was when I could tell he had just got out of a meeting with his boss and his boss was breathing down his neck. And we were actually doing well. And he came in and ruined the whole mood because he was mad because his boss is mad at him.
Shit rolls downhill. That's what they say. I'll tell you this much. That is a culture problem, much more than a production problem.
Yep.
My opinion is that is a culture problem. You have a culture of negativity and a culture of unreasonable at your company, at your leadership level. That's going to trickle down and your churn employee-wise is just going to go up. People say the average tenure for a sales development rep is 18 months. I can tell you that in 18 months, I learned very quickly that no one was going to randomly jump down into the SDR room and coach me. They weren't going to come sit next to me and be like, what are you working on? How can I help you? That doesn't happen. But they sure are going to come in and talk about how much we suck. They sure are going to bust into that door and tell us we need to do more than what we're doing right now. I'm not going to tell you how, but I am going to tell you that it's not going well. That's not motivation. That's the hypocrisy here. We're going to be motivated when we win, but I am going to literally shit on your face if you don't make this number. How valuable is that? How bought into the company is that SDR now? Not at all. I'm looking for my out as soon as possible, in fact, because I'm not going to deal with that. I had a guy just today text me and say, the CEO just told me that if I don't hit my number for the next 3 months straight, I'm fired. I was like, dude, what? I would start looking before you even, like, that guy's already fired you in his mind.
It's over.
Yeah. You're done, bro.
Mm-hmm. Or you should be done. I mean, at the very least, that should tell you you need to quit.
I don't let anybody talk to me that way. I don't give a shit who you are. You know, like,
even if you hit your number for 3 months, I wouldn't stay.
I still wouldn't. I would say, hey, I hit my number. I'm out.
Yeah. That's not how you handle it.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. It's not like an if-then scenario. And that's why I don't like plans, because it's like, oh, if you hit your number, then we'll keep you. But it's like, yeah, but there's a deeper problem underneath that performance, right? Like, okay, just because I work 18 hours a day for a month to hit my number doesn't mean the problem's fixed. Like 2 months from now, it'll probably just happen again. We're going to have this cycle of plans that never ends.
That's right. That's
It's
right.
not actually
And
fixing it.
no, it's not. And you know what they say is, you want to see God laugh, tell him your plans. Tell him what you're planning. I promise it's not going to work out the way you think, right? Yeah, I plan to get 35 demos this month. I probably will get 15 if I'm lucky.
It's just like, as a leader, you can't tell them even what you're doing. I feel like when I show my hand too much as a leader, it just completely ruins the whole thing anyway. You need
showing
to
your hand. I think showing your hand matters up or down. If you're showing your hand down, it's not good. But if you're showing your hand up, it's not good.
You should only be looking at your own hand.
It's like I don't know if you know this game. It's called euchre. You ever play it?
No, I haven't.
So euchre is a lot. You ever play spades or hearts?
No, actually.
Great. So it's a lot like those games you know nothing about. When you play spades or euchre or hearts, the idea is that you have to win the majority of the books. So everybody they play in four, you play in pairs, and you're wanting to get the majority of the hands won between you and your partner. You plan to get X amount of books, but inevitably something happens that's out of your control. One of your other competitors here has a bigger card than you. That is the same thing happening every single month when an SDR starts their process of trying to get meetings. I have this hand, and I'm about to start playing it. I think I'm going to get the majority, if not all, of what I need every month. But inevitably, something happens that's way out of my control, and I can't get to that number, or I lose that hand. I lose that book. It's unavoidable. And when we're leaders, we have this great plan. We have this hand. And we show it to the people beneath us, and they go, oh, I really like it, or I don't. And then we show it to the leadership, and they go, don't do that. You're like, damn, dude, like, what's the point of me coming up with a plan? It's like people that edit writing. I don't know if you've ever sent something in to be like edited. Hey, will you take a look at this? They want to change. Like some people will be like, you need a comma here. There's a grammatical error there. Your tense is wrong right here. That's really useful. But other people want to like rewrite what you wrote. Like, when does it stop becoming my job and start becoming yours? As an SDR, being told how to do the job is like, why don't you give me some guidance? Don't tell me how to do it. I'm not you. We have to own our role. That can be really difficult to do when you're trying to come up with a plan instead of doing with the job.
And it's funny how often we talk about sales and metaphor with doctors and that kind of thing. And so often that sales leaders don't actually treat the real disease. They're treating the symptoms, right?
Yeah.
It's a very common saying, but we don't really take advantage of it. Like, for example, if your team's not making enough calls, instead of saying, if you don't make these calls, you lose the leads or I'm going to fire you. It's like, how about we spend maybe an hour rewriting our talk track together with you being the person that's like driving and putting your own messaging into it. And then I'll do 5 calls with you using your script. And like, I'm going to try to book a call of it. And then I'm going to pass it over to you and we'll do it together and I'll give you advice. That's the way to get them to make more calls, but we don't actually do it.
I always found that the best way to get your sales reps to make more calls is to sit in the room with them and make calls.
100%.
My experience has taught me that if I'm in the room, more gets done. If I'm not in the room, those guys just do whatever they want to do. Maybe I'll make calls for 20 minutes and then I'll try to send a couple of emails and then I'm going to turn around and chat with my buddy for a while. You know, like that. It's common. It's human nature to want to connect with the people that are in the room with you. But if you have a job to do and I'm holding you accountable and you know that the results are what's going to land you in a good graces with me, I need to be in the room and I need you to hear me doing it as well so that you can learn from me, one, but also so you know that I'm no hypocrite. I want this done and we're going to do it together as a unit, part of the crew, part of the ship.
100%.
Yeah.
There's always something underneath. That's the key. Cause like your team's not doing pipeline management, then it's like, okay, let me actually show you what happens when you do it. Like let's actually go through and like, I'll manage your pipeline for 1 week And if you don't close one more deal, I'm going to get off your back. And then
Yeah.
I'll record what I did and we'll do it together once. And then I expect you to do it here. Like, but again, getting actually hands-on and not just going, hey, do this and walking away.
So I actually had my intro into SaaS sales was underneath a guy named Zach Metters. He was the business development manager at Cirrus Insight, where I cut my teeth in SaaS sales. And he gave me 30 days of question answering. He was like, I'll answer anything you want for 30 days. But on the 31st day, everything you ask me is going to get a response, and that response is going to sound like this. Let me Google that for you. Let me just tell you that only has to happen once before you never ask him anything again. But what it did was it prompted me to consistently search for my own answers. And what I found was that I don't need him to answer questions. I can go do this myself. I can find out on my own. I can develop my own process. I can build my own brand. I can do what I want with this role. It's mine. Until you want it back. And then you can have it and I'll go own it somewhere else.
I fucking love that. I love that, man. That's incredible. I almost feel like that's going to be the ending of our podcast today.
Beautiful.
That was wonderful.
Thank you.
What is the best way for people to connect with you, James, online?
You can reach me anytime. I answer my phone. My cell is 305-632-6005. You can also email me at james@jbarrows.com, or you can Google the hashtag #SayWhatSales. I am impossible to miss.
I was shaking my head because I just asked, how can people connect with you online? You gave your cell phone number.
Yeah, that's right.
I love that.
Yeah, I answer my phone.
I have to also give my cell phone number now. It's like, if you listen to this podcast, you got 2 new leads. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to be one of your leads. Like, call me and tell me what you got. Pitch me. If it's good, we'll talk about it. If it's not, I'm going to tell you it's not and probably pitch you on better sales practices.
That ties in with the theme so well. It's almost like I thought about this. That's incredible.
Almost.
Yeah. And how about you plug the new on-demand training one more time?
Yes, absolutely. You definitely want to check this out. Don't miss the opportunity. This is brand new stuff. It's never been revealed before. We did this about a month ago, super quiet. It's not the time to be out there screaming about how incredible your team is or how awesome you are. So we put this out quietly. It is for frontline reps that want to invest in their own skill sets. So this is not for your big giant organizations to, take over and own this and distribute it to their team. That's not what this is. This is for individual contributors that are looking to step up their game, learn new skills, put things into their standard sales routines that they go through every day that are actually impacting their pipelines in a positive way. So filling the funnels in there, driving to closes in there, social selling by Morgan J. Ingram, and then I do a whole course on personal branding, all our webinars, all our live casts, all of the podcast episodes for Make It Happen Mondays, and then all our sales tips and techniques are baked into this on-demand platform. $420 for the year will get you access to this. You can stream it to your TV. It's definitely innovative. We think this is going to change sales training forever.
Yeah, and the best way to reach that is the ondemand.jbarrows.com.
Yes, check it out online, ondemand.jbarrows.com. That's ondemand.jbarrows.com.
It's a shame you don't have a phone number for this new
305-632-6005. Call me and I will set you up with On Demand.
All right. Well, my name is Patrick, and if you want to know my cell phone number, you can message me on LinkedIn. But once again, I am your eternal co-host. I am the modern day Rod Serling. You can connect with me also on YouTube or on 5 on Friday on YouTube. Please subscribe to this podcast on Spotify and Anchor. You're beautiful. Don't ever change. Catch you next time. Bye, James.
See you, pal.